I travel a lot, and I'm very happy to be here with you today. And as I travel, last week, for example, I was in India speaking at the Indian Institute of Technology. And just a few days ago in Spain, in Seville, meeting both people in government, in the enterprise, in schools of various degrees. And I was in Amsterdam, New York, Paris, London, Rome, Buenos Aires, and so on and so forth. And my next stop will be Shanghai. The questions that crop up all around are the same. How can we understand the world in rapidly changing, accelerating, exponential times? A great example to illustrate this problem is starting with a wonderful company that was the undisputed protagonist of the era of chemical film. Photography was dominated by this company, employing over 100,000 people that lasted over 100 years. And not seeing the coming era of digital photography, it is no bankrupt. And it has been replaced in value, in mind share, in day-to-day use by somebody completely different. And just like this company suffered that fate, the rapid phase change that succeeds the progressive accumulation of change that imperceptibly creeps up to burst into the consciousness of everybody around is what we are seeing in fields as disparate as energy, manufacturing, finance, learning, health, and others. And this phase change is what I want to talk about because as human beings, we must be able not only to plan and forecast and build for the future, we must be able to secure dignity for individuals, and we must be able to build and maintain and nurture communities that welcome participation, welcome creativity, welcome risk-taking, but also secure rights to those who are part of that community. And the uncertainty around the times that we are living is actually inherent. It is not something that comes from our lack of knowledge or lack of trying. It is such that even those that we delegate to make decisions in our place, policymakers in the political class are obviously affected by it because they are not different. They are just humans, fallible as we are, and they are consumed by the doubt, and they are often questioning whether they are going to be able to prepare their communities and their nations to the future that is coming. I will talk to you about 4 different shifts that are coming. The first is the energy shift. When thousands of years ago, our society was designed around muscle energy, whether from humans or from animals, our society had a given shape. And this shape and this organization of society was changed very radically when we get access to, for example, chemical energy, which is now through carbon, oil, gas, is the main power source of our society today. But the new source is already on the horizon, and it is getting more and more visible. It is acquiring more and more resources around it to support its diffusion, and it is solar energy. The National Bank of Abu Dhabi published a report a few weeks ago saying that excess energy demand in the Middle East, financed by the bank, is going to be met through renewable sources. And this is in the Middle East. The second shift is economic. We have created an incredible global society. with the difference between the dinosaurs as us, that they didn't have telescopes. Both metaphorically and concretely, we are using the tools of science and reason to build structures that for 500 years could only be centralized and hierarchical in enterprises and our societies. But today we have an alternative due to the global availability of rapid communication infrastructures to have distributed and decentralized organizations instead. And manufacturing through 3D printing, food production in so-called plant labs, smartphone-based health, or finance, where financial technology itself is rapidly evolving, are all examples of how new types of organization, decentralized and distributed networks, are evolutionarily more adept in facing the challenges that we see around us than not the old hierarchical centralized structures. A lot of people are saying that peer-to-peer hospitality or transportation systems are competing with hotels or taxi services. I say that these are building trust networks that are incommensurably better than not traditional violence-based police forces to create secure societies. So the changes are coming from all around, and each of these could be labeled a fad, but altogether it is evident that they are unstoppable. If you ask the Roman, is it possible to create a society that is not based on slavery? The answer would be absolutely not. But today, we are living in a society that emancipated its participants, and slavery is unknown. Just a couple of 100 years ago, it was universal for children to start working at 6 years of age and work 10, 15 hours a day in mines. And once again, we were able to change that condition. The levels of employment in many societies are changing. And there are actually 5% of the population that feed 100%. And there are 15% of the population that create the material objects that all of us use. And many of us do things day in, day out with a lot of passion and creativity that nobody would have called work in the recent past. But still, we are allowing ourselves to label people as unemployed, as worthless, as lazily using the social benefits available to them without realizing that there is a shift undergoing. And of course, bureaucracies are resisting this change, even if it is becoming more and more evident to more and more people that in the future, only creative, value-added, passionate contributions to society will be available. We will not even call it work anymore. It will be a privilege to be able and contribute. However, the entire social contract will need to change in order to accommodate this kind of shift. The Universal Declaration of the Human Rights by the United Nations is unconditional, making food, shelter, security, health available to everybody in our society is now within our reach, with no conditions. And in order to achieve that, in order to open the conversation with the vision, the leadership, the courage, the risk-taking necessary to re-discuss what is this social contract that we must adopt, replacing the old, requires our global planet-wide society to open a mind shift, to be ready, to embrace diversity. If a company as standardized as the leader of the fast food industry dares to sell its leading product calling it Makalu Tikki, rather than its traditional name, in a local market in India, that means that we can all adapt and we can all embrace diversity and change. And if diversity is part of what our society is going to be about, and we do not want a global dictatorship to impose a single solution in terms of culture, in terms of practices, in terms of ways of life to everybody, then the only way to go is to embrace and understand empathy and tolerance, with the challenge, of course, that we have to understand how to achieve a heightened level of empathy and heightened level of tolerance amongst those who repel that point of view. Not only societies and enterprises, each of us as individuals also are asking ourselves the same question. How will you thrive through the coming changes in the developing network society? If this change is unstoppable, then worrying about how to stop it is useless. It is going to be what it is going to be, what we are going to make it. Luckily, contrary to what used to be in the past, when we had to mount incredible adventures to discover new continents, we had to acquire capital to design new types of industries. Everything that I mentioned in terms of examples of what is happening is available with zero barriers to entry if you only want to try. The time from going to idea to action is reducing to zero. And our society allows us to embrace failure. It is not a problem to try something and learn from the mistakes. As we experiment, as we learn, we are ready to teach, to spread, to compare, to confront knowledge from others and acquire and grow together. Billions of people around the planet are embracing new technologies, and they are being empowered by them. The old thinking is crumbling all around. And as you embrace the new type of thinking, you realize what practices that were tragically embraced in the past are now unsustainable. Unsustainability itself is now unsustainable. We don't have new continents to conquer and to destroy. We have to build together resilient solutions, both in our local communities and in our planet-wide global society. There are an unbounded number of opportunities that we have in front of us. We just have to take the first step on the journey to conquer them. And these are, for many of you, I'm sure, resembling of the dreams when you are flying. When I dream of flying, I wake up and I'm sure I can still fly. Many people had dreams that were too soon. Leonardo drew helicopters 500 years before they were possible. And when those dreams became reality, when we were able to build airplanes, helicopters, and now spaceships, experts still provided their unhealthy, skeptical positions, trying to stop changes from happening. There is no guarantee, of course, that we will be able to conquer the challenges that are staying in front of us. There is no path that is sure and it is laid out clearly in front. We have to keep the objectives, our eyes on the objectives, and we have to step by step course correct and test what we can do. But the question is really about you. Whether you want to take the first step, whether you want to embrace the change that is coming, whether you will participate in the future together. Thank you.